Good evening. Good evening. It's September 26th. It's about 9:15 in the evening, and I decided to shoot a moment in the life of a criminal defense attorney. So this isn't the whole day in the life thing, but it's just a moment that I wanted to share with you. And I was actually inspired by another criminal defense attorney. His name is Matt Wayman. He practices in St. Louis, and I just happened to be earlier in the day. I was looking at my YouTube analytics and just kind of looking at numbers and seeing how things are coming along. And in the recommended, as far as the research section, it was mentioning a criminal defense attorney vlog. And I'm so just fascinated by the law. I truly love the law and love what I do. And I'm always trying to learn from other people and draw inspiration from other attorneys outside the law, whether it's artists, music artists, photographers, designers, whomever. I can draw inspiration from wherever. And I happened to chance upon Matt's vlog, and he was shooting content on, a day in the life of a criminal defense attorney. And he was talking about traveling. He was on the road and having to drive like three hours just to sit down with his client and prepare for court. And I thought about, so many things that we do as defense attorneys that just really go unnoticed, that, it's not something obviously that you would ever brag to a client about, like, I drove 3 hours to see you or anything like that. Obviously, we're getting paid to do what it is that we do, whether that's, you're a public defender or you're appointed cases by the county, or if you're retained counsel and being paid directly by a client. There's just a lot of things that we do behind the scenes that, sometimes on the outside world can go unappreciated, but at the same time, just being able to take pride in yourself, take pride in your work, and know that you're doing something good for not only your client, but society on a whole. And I really just wanted to talk about something that happened today in court. And before getting into that, part of the inspiration was, there's this story, I'm sure you heard it, about the three bricklayers. And they're these guys who are laying bricks. They're working on a project, and a guy approaches one of the bricklayers and he says, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he says, "I'm laying brick. I'm doing what I got to do to feed my family." And the guy goes to the next person. He says, "Hey, what are you doing?" And the guy says, I'm building a wall, right? And then he goes to the third person and says, "Hey, what are you doing?" And the guy says, "I'm a cathedral builder. I'm building a great cathedral for the Almighty." And the takeaway is, there's a few, one has to do with, what is your purpose? And do you understand your purpose? And how do you see what you do? Because all three of them were right? The first one saying, "Hey, I'm a bricklayer. I'm doing this job to feed my family." I'm sure all three of them were doing what they needed to do to feed their family, right? But if you just see what you're doing as the minimal thing of just laying bricks, there's going to be a way that you look at what you do versus the person who sees the bigger picture, who feels like he's driven by a purpose. He's building a cathedral to the Almighty. Just imagine how inspired he is in something that someone on the outside looking in, or somebody who doesn't see things that way, might just look at, "Oh, well, he's just laying brick." But you could never convince that person that, what he was doing is unimportant, right? Because he's a cathedral builder. He's building a cathedral for the Almighty. And I thought, it's just such a beautiful message, because it's so easy, to get caught up in thinking about where you want to be, if you're not where you want to be, it's so easy to get caught up in thinking about, what you don't have. It's easy to think about, just all kinds of different things where you're falling short in life and not take stock in and appreciate the wonderful things and the wonderful people around you, and even your profession and what you do and how you contribute to society. And with that as a backdrop, I talk about what ended up happening in court today. My associate attorney, Michelle, she's out of the office temporarily. And so I was taking over a case for her, and client had already pled guilty. We were now at sentencing. And, the deal had been negotiated. She worked extra hard in order to resolve the case in a way that he wouldn't have to do any jail time, even though, part of what he had been originally charged with carried a 90-day sentence, a mandatory 90-day sentence. Now, obviously, we're not talking about the crime of the century, right? 90 days versus, 90 months, right? But 90 days, I mean, think about it. Would you want to go into custody for 90 days, right? And the reality is it would be halftime. So it would be, 45 days or sometimes less. But still, to have to go to jail for a month and a half definitely would ruin some plans that you have for your life, right? So again, props to Michelle, props to my team for getting that deal. But nonetheless, we were here for sentencing, and it ended up coming up some other issue where probation thought that he had to do 10 days, or that's what they were recommending. So what ends up happening is, when you reach a deal with the prosecutor, oftentimes, you're going to reach a deal, your client's going to enter a change of plea, and then there's going to be the sentencing. And the DA is able to make a recommendation in terms of sentencing. We're able to make a recommendation, and probation, they'll interview the clients. They'll go pretty deep into their family history, the facts of the case, their work history, education, risk factors of them reoffending, all these different type of things. And they ultimately make a recommendation to the judge as to what the sentence should be. So, as it stood, the prosecutor was saying, okay, there shouldn't be any jail time and he should be on probation. Obviously, our position was that there shouldn't be any jail time, but the probation department was saying, Your Honor, there should be 10 days. They were recommending 10 days in custody. And again, you end up doing half of that time given good time credit. So it really would have been 5 days. So again, if 90 days certainly wasn't reflective of the crime of the century, then, 10 days obviously wouldn't either, especially when you're only doing 5 days in custody. But I had a conversation with my client, and, I told him, hey, probation is recommending 10 days, but obviously I don't want you to go into custody. I want you, right, to be able to stay out of custody. So let's have a talk about how your life would be affected if you were to have to go into custody for even 5 days. So we had that discussion, and, we talked about his work history, and he'd been working at his job for 12 years. So for 12 years, he had been holding it down at the same job. Not only that, he had just gotten an offer with Amazon. So he got a job offer with Amazon. He was going to be working, basically got a second job to be able to continue to provide for his family. But not only that, recognized, and I just so respect and appreciate the presence of mind of this individual, recognizing that if I have a bunch of free time, that might be problematic for me right now at this point in my life. So I got a second job so that not only can I further provide for my family, but it's also going to keep me out of trouble. And I thought that was brilliant on his part. He had been doing AA sessions. So, he was doing 2 AA sessions a week, decided to abstain from alcohol. And at that point, by that time, he hadn't had a drink in 2 months. So for 8 weeks, 2 months, hadn't had a sip of alcohol and made the decision that he would never drink again. He recognized that drinking alcohol really for him only brought him problems. And for some people, you can drink responsibly and, it's not going to affect your family life. It's not going to affect your work life. It's not going to affect your personal life. But for others, unfortunately, there's no control when it comes to alcohol. You can't stop even when it's ideal to stop. It affects your, if you're drinking too much, you might be showing up late to work. You're showing up not on your A game because you might be hungover. You might be just miserable with your family, with your children, with your girlfriend, with your wife, whomever. And he had acknowledged that, hey, alcohol only brings me problems, right? And he, like so many people, had been using alcohol in order to mask his problems, in order to get away from his problems versus actually taking them on, confronting them, and doing what he needed to do to be his best self. And so he also was in therapy. He started therapy, and it's been good for him. It's helping him make better decisions. It's helping him to, understand, hey, I've got a bunch of wrongs that I got to right. I got to make this situation right. I've got young kids. I need to be alive for my kids. I need to be the best father I can be. And if I'm drinking alcohol, I can't do that. He had all this in his mind. And, as we're going through these facts and these situations, I'm recognizing how, it's not fun to have to go through the criminal justice system, right? For a lot of people, that's the indicator that you've hit rock bottom. If you are now facing criminal charges, now facing jail time, that's the life emergency. That's the ultimate wake-up call. Because beyond that comes major prison sentences, comes, potentially life-altering situations, even death. And for him to have gone through all this and being the sole breadwinner, he was supporting his girlfriend. He has young kids. And, for him to have to go into jail, even for 5 days, would have probably, he wouldn't been able to afford to lose a week salary. And some of you can relate to that. If you had to go without a week's salary, that might throw your whole situation off financially. Right. So he couldn't afford to miss a week of work. And on top of that, he probably would have lost his job if he had to leave for a week. Not only that, but he would have lost the new job opportunity, because where can you start a new job and say, hey, oh, by the way, I gotta be away for 5 days. Can I take 5 days off? Probably would have been like, oh, no, sorry. Well, we're going to just, rescind your offer and go with somebody else. And so then what ripple effect would that have on this gentleman's family, right? If he lost the new job opportunity, lost the current job that he had, that's enough to really send somebody who's finally embracing sobriety and trying to make positive change. That would be something that would send you straight back to the bottle. And to understand the weight of that, I had to let him know there's no way we're going to let you, go into custody. We're going to, throw everything that we have at this judge to help them understand why it's not good for you, why it's not good for your family, why it's not good for society for you to go into custody. And fortunately, on the other side of that sentencing hearing, he was able to avoid jail time. So he'll be able to keep this job he's been at for 12 years. He'll be able to start at Amazon. He'll be able to continue on with his therapy. He'll be able to continue on with his AA sessions. And he will be a better man for the work that he has the courage to take on and do. And as I think about what the impact that will ultimately be for a man to continue to have the pride of being able to provide for his family, of knowing that he's made amazing decisions, putting, his former selfishness and pride and even ignorance aside to move towards the light, that has potentially generational impact. And one of the things that he said to me was so beautiful, and it was that through therapy, he's been able to see the world differently. He's able to see things through a positive light versus see things so negatively. And, discovering tools to help him be a better person. And I just, I'm really happy. I'm really proud of him. I know that mental health issues still have such a societal stigma. And again, little by little, we'll do away with that stigma. We'll recognize that there's no shame in getting help. And I would tell you, if you're watching this and you for years have needed to talk to somebody just because you've been through so much, and you just to this point haven't had the courage to talk to someone, let this be the invitation to do that. There are so many even free or sliding scale resources out there to help you in order to, do what my client did. And that's, equip himself with keys in order to be able to live a better life. So you don't have to go at this alone. You don't have to suffer in silence. You don't have to use alcohol and drugs as escapism from the demons that you have to address. And so, as I close out this moment that I had today, I'm so grateful for what I do. I'm grateful for my team. I'm grateful for my clients. I'm grateful for every opportunity I've been given, and I'm inspired. So again, I want to thank Matt Wyman for sharing his life and inspiring me to get back to sharing a bit of what I have going on. There's a lot since my last day in the life. There's so much that I have to share, but I wanted to start with this today. And so if you have any questions, if you have any comments, let me know. I definitely want to thank you for, continuing to tune in and watch and listen to what I have to say. So be blessed. Have a lovely evening, and we'll see you on the next one. All right. Peace.